You wake up, grab your phone, and check your bank account. Just like you always do, but today feels different. Because instead of seeing a few $1,000s, you see $50,000. And for a second, you just stare at the screen. You expected this moment to feel like freedom, like you finally made it. But instead, it feels strangely quiet. No celebration, no clarity, just a weird sense of pressure. Because now you're thinking, okay, what do I actually do with this? Do you invest it? Do you pay off your debt? Do you keep saving like you've always done? Or do you finally enjoy it a little? Because you've been grinding for years? Here's the thing. Nobody really talks about this part. Everyone talks about how to make money, but almost no one prepares you for what happens when you finally have it. And this moment right here, this is where people either start building real wealth or slowly fall back to zero without even realizing it. My name is Demas, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. If you're someone who feels stuck financially, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, if you've managed to save up $50,000, you've already done something most people struggle to do for years, if they ever get there at all. You showed discipline, consistency, sacrifice. You said no to things when it was easier to say yes. But here's the part no one tells you. Getting to 50K and knowing what to do with it are two completely different skills. And a lot of people assume that if they're good at saving money, they'll automatically be good at growing it. That's not how it works. Because once you reach this level, the game changes. It's no longer about effort. It's about decisions. Now you might be thinking, I just need to pick the right investment and I'll be fine. Not exactly. Because what really determines your outcome isn't just what you choose. It's how you behave after you choose. Look, on paper, hitting $50,000 in savings puts you ahead of a lot of people. Data from the Federal Reserve shows that many adults don't even have a fraction of that saved, especially under 40. So if you've made it here, you're not average anymore. But here's the thing. This is exactly where a lot of people get stuck. Because they treat 50K like a finish line. Like they've made it. So they relax. They slow down. They start rewarding themselves a little more than they should. And slowly, without noticing, progress stops. Here's what most people don't realize. $50,000 is not a wealth milestone. It's a decision-making milestone. Before this point, your financial progress was mostly driven by your income and your ability to save. Simple formula. Earn, spend less, save the difference. But now, that formula starts to break because small decisions, where you put your money, how you manage risk, how consistent you are, start to matter way more. This is where it gets really interesting. Two people can both have 50K, and 10 years later, one has 300K, while the other is still stuck, or even back at zero. Same starting point. Completely different outcomes. And it all comes down to what happens next. By the time you hit 50K, you've probably heard all the usual advice. Just invest it. Pay off your debt first. Diversify your portfolio. Build multiple income streams. And look, none of that is wrong. In fact, most of it is solid advice. But here's the problem. It sounds simple because it ignores reality. It assumes that once you know what to do, you'll just do it. Consistently, rationally, without hesitation. But that's not how people work. Here's what most people don't realize. Money decisions aren't made in a calm, logical environment. They're made when the market is dropping, when you're stressed, when you're tired, or when you feel like you deserve a reward. That's when things start to break. Now you might be thinking, okay, but if the advice is correct, why do so many people still struggle? Because advice like just invest doesn't tell you when to invest, how much to invest, or what to do when your 50K suddenly drops to 42K in a bad month. And that's the part that actually matters. Because money isn't just math, it's math, plus behavior, plus psychology. And if you ignore that, even the best strategy won't save you. All right, let's slow this down and look at the numbers. Because before we talk about strategy or psychology, you need to understand what your $50,000 can actually do. Let's start simple. If you leave that money in a high-yield savings account earning around 4%, after 10 years, your $50,000 becomes roughly $74,000. Safe, predictable, no stress, but also not life-changing. Now compare that to investing in something like a broad market index, averaging about 8% per year. After 10 years, that same $50,000 grows to around $108,000. After 20 years, You're looking at roughly $230,000. Same money, completely different outcome. Now here's where it gets interesting. Let's say you also have $10,000 in credit card debt at 18% interest. That's costing you about $180 every single year. Paying that off isn't just reducing debt. It's like earning an instant 18% return on your money. And you won't find that kind of guaranteed return in the market. Now you might be thinking, okay, so I should just pay off all my debt first. And mathematically, that makes sense. But as you're about to see, the best financial decision isn't always the one with the highest return on paper. So on paper, the math is clear. Higher returns win. High-interest debt should go first. Simple. But here's the thing. If money decisions were purely logical, everyone would already be wealthy. And they're not, because the real problem isn't knowledge. It's behavior. This is where it gets really interesting. Let's start with loss aversion. People feel the pain of losing money about twice as strongly as the pleasure of gaining it. So when you invest your $50,000 and the market drops 10%, you don't calmly think, this is normal. You feel like you just lost $5,000. And that feeling pushes people to sell at exactly the wrong time. Then there's instant gratification. You've worked for years to reach 50Ks. A part of you wants to enjoy it now. Upgrade your lifestyle. Reward yourself. And slowly, without realizing it, you undo years of discipline in a few emotional decisions. Now you might be thinking, I'm disciplined. That won't happen to me. Maybe. But risk tolerance isn't what you say, it's what you do under pressure. It's easy to feel confident when nothing is happening. It's different when your money is actually on the line. And at 50K, for the first time, it really is. So what actually changes when you hit $50,000? It's not your lifestyle. It's not your income. It's how your money starts behaving and how your decisions start compounding. Here's the thing. Before 50K, your financial progress is mostly driven by how much you earn and how much you save. If you make more money, you grow faster. If you cut expenses, you save more. Simple. But after 50K, something shifts. Your progress becomes less about effort and more about decisions. Where you put your money, how consistently you invest, whether you stay disciplined when things get uncomfortable, because now small decisions carry bigger consequences. A 10% gain isn't just a percentage anymore, it's $5,000. A bad move doesn't cost you a little. It can set you back months, even years. This is where leverage quietly enters the picture. Not leverage in the risky borrowed money sense, but leverage in the sense that your capital starts working for you. Now you might be thinking, so I just need to make smarter decisions. Yes, but more importantly, you need to make consistent decisions, because at this level, inconsistency is what keeps people stuck. And consistency is what separates those who build wealth from those who stay in place. Here's what most people don't realize. Wealthy people don't obsess over getting the highest return possible. They focus on making decisions they can stick with. Look, anyone can pick a strategy that looks good on paper. Aggressive stocks, crypto, timing the market. But the real question is, will you still follow that strategy when things go wrong? This is where it gets really interesting. Imagine two people both starting with $50,000. Person A goes all in on high-risk investments, chasing higher returns, no emergency fund, still carrying some high-interest debt. Person B takes a different approach. They pay off their expensive debt, keep a few months of cash for safety, and invest the rest steadily over time. Now, in a perfect market, Person A might win. But real life isn't perfect. Markets drop, unexpected expenses happen, emotions kick in. And when that happens, Person A is forced to react. Sell investments, take losses, reset. Person B, they stay in the game. And that's the advantage most people underestimate. Because wealth isn't built by making the smartest move once. It's built by making good decisions and repeating them long enough for compounding to take over. So let's bring this down to something you can actually use. Because at this point, you don't need more theory. You need a simple system you can follow. First, eliminate high-interest debt. Anything above roughly 8 to 10%? That's not just debt, it's a guaranteed drag on your progress. Paying it off is one of the safest, highest return moves you can make. Second, build a real emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in cash, not invested, not touched. Now you might be thinking, isn't that inefficient? Maybe, but it's not there to grow. It's there to protect you from making bad decisions when life gets unpredictable. Third, start investing consistently. Not perfectly, consistently. If putting in all 50K at once feels stressful, break it up. Invest a fixed amount every month. Reduce the emotional pressure. Fourth, avoid lifestyle inflation. Just because you can spend more doesn't mean you should. What you've built is momentum. Don't trade it for short-term comfort. And finally, create a system. Automate your investing. Define your allocations. Set rules you follow no matter what. Because the goal isn't to be perfect. It's to stay consistent long enough for it to work. Let's zoom out for a second. Because this isn't really about $50,000. It's about what that $50,000 can turn into. If you don't mess it up, here's the thing. If you take that money, invest it consistently, and add even a modest $500 a month at around 8% annual return, in 20 years, you're looking at something close to $500,000. Not because you found the perfect investment, not because you timed the market, but because you stayed consistent. Now you might be thinking, that takes too long. And yeah, it does. But building real wealth was never supposed to be fast. The problem is, most people underestimate how powerful consistency is and overestimate how much they can shortcut the process. Look, 50,000 won't change your life overnight, but it changes your direction. And direction is everything. Because if you keep moving forward without resetting your progress, without making emotional decisions, you don't just stay ahead. You pull further away, so don't rush this. Don't overcomplicate it. And most importantly, don't go backwards because you're closer than you think.